Y'all not gonna be petty all
I'm
interview
right.
now.
I'm not.
Stop.
But really, what got you into politics? What made you want to say this is the route I want to go?
So, my first office, the first office I ran for was freshman class representative at Howard University. But it really was, so the first office that I ran for was, after that, was district attorney of San Francisco. And the reason was, I grew up in a community of folks, like I said, who were marching and shouting. And I said, yes, there is an important role to play on the outside, banging down the door, on bended knee, trying to change the systems. But we also have to be inside the room where the decisions are being made. And I ran for district attorney because I wanted to be the one who was making decisions about what we were going to do with criminal justice policy. And in fact, I wrote a book back in 2008 based on my belief about what we need to do to reform the criminal justice system. And here's how I think about it. Criminal justice policy, we have been offered a false choice. The choice suggesting that you're either soft on crime or you're tough on crime, instead of asking, are we smart on crime, right? And by that, I mean recognizing that the public health model tells us if you want to deal with a health epidemic, smartest, most effective, and cheapest way to deal with it is prevention first. If you're dealing with it in the emergency room or the prison system, it's too late and it's too expensive. So let's be smart on crime. And that means let's be smart in knowing that if we really want to have public safety, let's prevent crime from happening in the first place, which means focusing on communities that we know need more economic support, need more pathways to economic health and success, doing what we need to do to recognize that there's a direct connection between public education and public safety. So let's prioritize public education and instead of just being only concerned about public safety, because there's a real connection, and it's actually cheaper to focus on educating young people than it is on incarcerating whole communities of people.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I saw you do that I was extremely impressed with. It was the Back on Track program.
Yeah, that's right.
What's that all about?
So Back on Track is a program that I started years ago. I focused on the 18 through 24-year-old young, drug sales offender. And the reason I focused on that population is because there are just a lot of them. And I also focused on that population because whether we were at Hampton or Howard, when we were in college, we were 18 through 24, and we were called college kids.
Right.
But when you turn 18 and you're in the system, you're considered an adult.
Right.
Period. Regardless of the fact that we know that's the very phase of life in which we have invested billions of dollars in this world, in these places called colleges and universities, knowing that that's the prime phase of life where you can mold somebody to be a productive and an accomplished adult. And so I focused on that population, also understanding that when they pick up that first offense, they will be designated a felon for life. And so what we did is essentially I created a program focused on them and basically getting them job counseling. A lot of the young men are fathers, getting them support for what they naturally want to do, which is parent their children, but may not have the skills or the resources. We focused on what to do around housing and just wrap around. And we ended up, as a result of doing that, and then when they would graduate, the program dismissed their charges. But what we also ended up doing is reducing their likelihood of reoffending by a huge percentage. And that was a model of what ended up later by the Justice Department being designated as a model of innovation in law enforcement in the country.
But what do we do with drugs being legalized, I should say marijuana being legalized in so many different states? And a lot of these kids, like you said, are in jail for that same legalized crime now.
We need to decriminalize marijuana. We have a problem with mass incarceration in our country. And let's be clear, the war on drugs was a failed war. It was misdirected. In essence, and we're now more people are understanding it when we talk about the opioid epidemic, that when you're talking about substance abuse, that's a public health matter. That should not be thought of as a criminal justice matter. And so what we need to do is recognize that we have to get people into treatment where that is appropriate. But as it relates to incarcerating people for marijuana, I think it is long overdue that we recognize we need to change the system.
Absolutely. It's interesting with the Back on Track program. You've proven that it works.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't more people want to use that as a model all across the country?
Well, people have. There have been folks from Philadelphia to Atlanta to Prince George's County, Maryland, who have replicated Back on Track and found great success. But, when you're trying to change a system and have it think of itself differently, it takes some time. I think it's taking too much time. But it is good to be able to highlight what has been proven to work, which is focusing on preventing crime before it happens instead of just reacting to crime after it happens.
All right. I want to go back